Now, over the last year or so, I've started to take this YouTube thing a little bit more seriously. Now, I also still freelance on the side as well, but the question of what the difference between doing YouTube and doing traditional filmmaking is, and which one should you pick as your full-time kind of thing. Now, I do understand that the roles are different and you're gonna have different trajectory, but I kind of think you can do both. We'll talk about it. So most of you guys that have come to this channel know that I do a lot of fitness stuff, and I didn't just start in video right off the bat. I actually did a lot of professional photography, and over time I started to get into video a little bit more, and that ended up paying more so, especially when I used it with my photo work. Over time I started to expect more of myself, and I started to learn a lot more about lighting and camera movement and lens choices, and starting the kind of beginnings of being a cinematographer or director of photography. Now, that kind of came with two things. One, my clients were super pleased in how things looked and how things felt in terms of their campaigns and generally just their content in general. But the other side of it is that as I got better and I wanted to charge more money, well, you started getting a lot less clients. And I don't know if you guys know this, or you guys have been in the fitness world before, but the budgets aren't the highest in the world. Oftentimes you'll get great stuff that'll look awesome on your reel, but compared to other departments, you might not get paid if you're going to just shoot fitness full time all the time. Now, that doesn't discount the fact that I have worked with some pretty large brands and I have been able to be more of a cinematographer and getting actually what I wanted out of those shoots, but it's not often and it's definitely not common that you're gonna get those experiences and opportunities. So a lot of times, and for the 99%, you might not get to experience those things. Now, I started the transition of moving myself a little bit away from working with smaller fitness companies and feeling like I'm fighting for my life with every budget call, but I also started working as a camera operator or just shooting for other people's channels. Now, over time, I started to realize that these people with massive followings, especially on YouTube, aren't that much different than the aptitude that I have. I know how to make videos, I'm pretty decent with a camera, and at the very least, I think I have the personality for it. So I decided to start making my own stuff in order to start to build my own brand up, but then also came into conflict with some of the filmmaking jobs I was getting, because which one do you pick? Do you decide to be the YouTuber or you decide to be the filmmaker instead? Now, as I started my channel and figuring out an angle of how I wanted to go, especially because I wanted to live in this kind of filmmaking camera world, was I saw a little bit of a gap. Now, oftentimes when new cameras get released, your favorite creators will talk about them, but then you kind of don't hear about them ever again. Now, for me personally, I like to actually use a camera thoroughly before kind of moving on to the next thing, but I'm also not against using other tools either. But I had used the Sony FX6 quite extensively through all the fitness stuff I was doing, so I decided to teach not only how to use that camera, but also how to do things in filmmaking while using that system, which took the growth really high up, but also at the same time, when I got the Sony FX30, which I still have now, I was doing the same thing for people that might not be able to afford the more expensive camera. And over time, the subscribers grew, and then we had things like brand deals and sponsorships. Now, I've already talked about this pretty extensively, but one thing that having more monetization strategy does for your YouTube channel is, as a filmmaker, you could say no to those lower paying jobs. If I don't want to work on a $500 video or a $1,000 video, and I don't want to feel like I'm fighting for my life every time I mention the price, it ends up being a situation where I could choose to take on a sponsorship for this channel and teach you guys, but then also buy myself out of doing jobs I hate, and then I have more room mentally and creatively for other things that I actually want to do. Now, YouTube is obviously going to be different than filmmaking, but I would argue in some respects it's a little bit more difficult. Now, as somebody that is a cinematographer or sometimes a camera operator, I only have to know about a couple of different things. However, on YouTube, I have to know how to do a ton of different stuff. I'm the director, the producer, I'm the strategist, I come up with ideas for videos, I have to be a photographer for those thumbnails, I also have to present properly, and also the cinematography stuff. I have to make the image look good to keep you guys watching these videos. And at the same time, I still need to freelance as a filmmaker to learn new skills that I can teach you guys so I never run out of ideas in terms of what to make in the first place. All of those things just seem like a giant storm, and you also have to do a lot of those things by yourself at first, rather than just going to a production company or working with a producer or an agency and only taking one role that's more simplified. However, you could still do both of those things at the same time. And on more than one occasion, I've been contacted to actually do jobs in the professional world of filmmaking as an operator or a DOP, and I've actually been able to charge a little bit more because they know you for the quality of content, which means they also equate a higher price in order to kind of get you off the couch and work for them instead. Now again, that's not everybody's situation, but at least in my experience and been doing this for the last year or so, the client jobs that I have had through YouTube, I've actually just been able to charge my normal rate, and I have a lot less pushback. Now, deciding to go all in on YouTube is a gigantic life decision, and usually I like to have friends as a sounding board in order to kind of talk things through. So I decided to call somebody that you guys are pretty familiar with as well, who's made a similar decision as I have. We're both filmmakers in this industry, but YouTube seems to be not only more feasible for what we actually want, but somewhere we actually want to be. Cam, you've obviously made the decision to kind of go full-time into YouTube. Now, what are some of the circumstances that kind of made you consider doing that?
Purely creative freedom. Like when you're doing client work, it's mostly you're just doing it for them, just to feed yourself, you know? And going into it, like you're grateful because like, oh, I get to do what I love and make money off of it. But then it slowly starts becoming something you don't love. And that's just the sad reality of it, is when your art becomes your work, there's not much art into it and you're always answering to someone else kind of thing. Where on YouTube, it allows you to purely put the pressure on yourself to be creative. And there's no one to take the fall if you miss, you know, which I like that pressure. I feel insanely creative, and I feel like on most jobs, I was not able to actually even show to myself what I'm capable of.
I also feel the idea of like kind of baby stepping my way into it too, right? Like doing the videos that are kind of like it's still to help other people, but you still get to show your skill set, and then scaling yourself up to maybe you do only work on those short films and come back and break those things down. And that's something that I actually like a lot about it, is that you can kind of go from the same steps as a production company. It just so happens to be on YouTube.
Like I used to see YouTube as a selfish thing, as like, I just want to do what I want to do. But I've learned over the years of doing it, like it's a community. So I can't just be like me. I could be me while the way I film it, but I also need to be aware that I need to earn the views. I need to earn people's subscriptions. I need to like actually be like one-on-one type of relationships with them, even if it's like a big number. Like anytime someone comments, I know it's like, oh, that's sweet. Like this other human being just commented on my video.
It's such a cool way of being able to use this as not only just an art form, but as a business as well. And I think what's interesting about it is that like it still kind of gets looked down on a little bit from other communities. But when you think about how many hats you actually have to wear in the YouTube space, like I would argue it's kind of hard.
YouTube has actually made me a better like filmmaker and photographer, because again, when you go on those jobs, it's just, as you said, it's like the same thing over and over and over and over. It's literally just rinse, wash, and repeat. That's what it becomes after you do it for a while. But then when you come to YouTube, like again, the pressure's onto yourself, and all of a sudden you find yourself kind of learning new things and be like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Oh, I didn't know I sucked at this. Like there's everything from directing yourself or directing other shoots or producing it, like trying to work out like clients and sponsorships and be able to keep funding so you can still keep providing all this free information. It's a lot of different hats, and you have to really love doing this stuff to make it. The ones that aren't taking it serious yet, they will be within I think within like 2 to 4 years from now.
Now, my original point is that you don't need to make filmmaking or YouTube mutually exclusive. You can actually do both. The way that I look at it is that I'm making videos as spec projects and showing off my portfolio in terms of my skill set, the things that I know, and that actually might help somebody else. Now, when I pick up a client or there's a brand deal or some sort of paid promotion, well, then that's going to be a client job just like I would in professional video production, and you kind of treat them the same way, except for the fact that you have a lot more creative control when making things for different sponsors than you do when you're working with a client. Another thing that it does is that it also gives you the money that you can make the projects that you want to make. If you have a short film in mind, or a short documentary, or a spec commercial that you really want to get on your portfolio, a lot of that funding comes from the monetization that you have on YouTube. Some of your favorite filmmakers that are on this platform that are making amazing things leverage some sort of monetization from their channel that they might not have been able to get otherwise. And I think getting into this game and learning more and more about how this works, I find that that's kind of the path that I want to go on. What I don't want to do is feel like I'm fighting for my life whenever I have a client call. I don't want to wonder where my next paycheck is coming from because maybe something is slower this season, or maybe there's a writer strike, which a lot of you guys are experiencing now. I want to have more control over my destiny. So using YouTube and teaching you guys, but also finding ways to make it financially feasible to continue to do that, is something that I'm interested in. It's something that I've been doing for quite a while, and it's grown enough that I could consider doing this full time and kind of putting aside the jobs that I don't want to do. And if you're somebody in that same position, you might want to consider doing the same thing. Now, with all that to be said, where I kind of am in this journey is I'm starting to actually acquire a little bit of a little safety net. So if I want to work on projects I want to, and often they're paid out of pocket, I can at least do that, and I don't have to worry about taking on a bunch of client work just to make the videos that I want to make. And also, to be real with you guys, I haven't thrown down in a little bit. Now, I was able to balance actually making stuff for myself and freelancing because I always had the income coming in. I haven't been able to do that this year because my entire focus was making 100 videos that were more value-based rather than me doing stuff for myself and flexing my skill set a little bit. But I think it's time to at least try to throw down a little bit better, especially in these videos. I kind of expect more from myself, and although you guys do like watching these videos, I think I can do it one better. So with thinking about all those things, coming from the fitness industry where the budgets aren't super high, and kind of not wanting to do jobs I don't want to just to make a dollar, and actually using YouTube to kind of bridge that gap as well, do I think other filmmakers should think about doing the same thing, and am I going to make this more of a full-time gig? I think if you have the personality for it, you have the capacity for it, because it is a lot of hard work, it is going to take you some time to actually make this into a personal brand that you can monetize, but once you do, it kind of functions as an unlimited money cheat, at the caveat that you're willing to work hard to actually earn it. That being said, for myself, I'm making that transition to doing a lot more things on YouTube and monetizing on that through courses and digital products, which I actually have in linking down description down below, or doing sponsorship deals or spec projects that I actually might get paid for. But if you guys want to check those things out, you might want to subscribe to the channel, because there's going to be a lot more. The next video, or the next couple of videos, I'm gonna try to throw down a little bit. But that being said, if you guys want to see more, well, I left something on the screen over here. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.